In this interview, I meet up with Aimee Eucce, who is a homeschooled kid with a successful corporate career. She is an accomplished business executive with over 18 years of business to business marketing experience. She gave it up all during COVID to homeschool her kids and launch her dream. Let's welcome Aimee. Thank you so much, Aimee, for coming in and speaking with me today. This is awesome to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So I want to start off by asking you, you were once homeschooled. I want to ask you, what was your experience as a homeschooler?
Well, it's interesting. My mom actually started me off in Montessori school when I was in pre-K and kindergarten. And she had never intended to actually homeschool me. It was her intention. She stuck me in a Montessori school. They provide the best, all the manipulatives. And well, I guess I didn't enjoy it because I would spike a fever every single day. And right about when my mom would get home, she'd get a call, Mrs. Friend, your daughter, she spiked a fever again. You must come pick her up. And she'd drive the 30 minutes back to the special school to come pick me up. And I guess I just wasn't ready to be away from home. I wasn't ready with the kids. There were some bullies in the school, and I just wasn't thriving. I wasn't doing well. So she decided, that's it. I'm not going to continue to drop her off just to go pick her back up again, for 15 minutes of school every day. So they decided to pull me out and they decided to homeschool me. And I have to say that I don't even remember. I remember snippets of school, but what I remember most as a child is the experiences. I remember playing circus in the backyard with my siblings. I remember doing a lemonade stand. I remember doing all these wonderful games and activities, and I feel like I had such a rich childhood. And I think that that's really because my parents did a great job of saying that homeschool is an experience, and they did all the traditional subjects. But what I remember most from being a child is all of the experiences.
Yes. Isn't that true, right? It's not the worksheets and stuff. It's always the experience, the
Yes.
hands-on stuff. So, Aimee, you decided to go back to the traditional school when you reached high school, right? So why did you decide to do that?
Well, I was really social and I wanted to do the whole school experience. I guess at the time I call it real school.
Yeah.
But even though that what I had done was completely real school, I wanted the social aspect in terms of I wanted to be a cheerleader and I wanted to do just all the things that I saw all my friends doing. And so I did. And it was actually surprisingly easy. I didn't even try and I got a 3.33 grade point average. Literally, I didn't really try that hard. And school was just super easy for me. It was fun. I, ran for ASB student president, got that. Did the whole cheerleading thing. I played volleyball. It just was a fun time. And I think it set me up well in terms of my personality for going to college. So it's about listening to your kids and figuring out what's best for them. Obviously if you have a child that is training for the Olympic horse jumping championship, you're going to want to homeschool them probably the whole way through while they do their, extreme, athletic sports. It just depends on what's best for your child. My brothers, they actually went into school when they were in junior high instead of high school.
And that was their choice?
That was their choice. My parents were amazing. They always made it our choice. And I'm going to do the same thing with my kids. I'm going to take my kids all the way through probably junior high, and then we'll see what their giftings are and what their talents are. What does it look like they're going to be when they grow up? What are they headed toward? What are their likes? And we'll shape their school experience based on that.
Wow. So the next question was, did you fit into your school? I think you did. You told us that, right?
Yes, I did. There were no issues, but my mom was always amazing. Like when we were homeschooled, she did a great job we did homeschool play groups. We were faith-based. So we went to church every week. We had, so I was never lacking in terms of relational aspect in terms of homeschooling. I was always, I was in, all these, brownie type stuff. I was in the missionettes, the Christian version of that through my church, but I did everything, I had lots of friends. So it just was a purposeful thing. And I know that it has to be purposeful. So I've been really careful as we're heading into, um, kindergarten with my son this year. I've been really purposeful in terms of, okay, we're going to go to the library this day. We're going to go to the children's
Mhm.
museum this day. We're going to go meet with a play date this day. We're going to, and I make sure, and I'm like, I know exactly what will be best for my child. And I'm careful to plan it out and then implement it.
That's the most important thing, right? Because it's not like they're not going to get any socialization, which one of the things that everybody think homeschool means we're at home.
Yeah.
That's not the case, is it? You're always
No,
out
it's
and
not.
about doing stuff, plan stuff.
Well, and I think it even opens you up to even more entrepreneurial activities. Like I said earlier, lemonade stands, circuses. Like we would charge the kids in our neighborhood to come watch our circus. So, I mean, I think it opens you up to being more creative. And we did our whole phase of door-to-door selling of, wrapping paper or, all the little things that you do when you're a kid. I just it opened us up to be able to do more, I think,
Yes. And
because homeschooling takes less time. I mean,
yes.
literally, it's like 2
Yeah.
hours or less per day when you're young, and then it could go up to 3, maybe 4 hours when you're in like the upper grades. But really, it's like 2 hours or less when you're at the kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade level.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
The rest of the day is yours to enjoy.
Exactly. Well, because there's learning in everything you do.
Yes.
You can be outside counting rocks or building with sticks and things. And just, I mean, you're always learning, whether you're
Oh,
learning architectural concepts or whether you're learning mathematical and rock counting or, artistic. And it's just life is
learning.
really
Learning.
education if you pay attention to it.
Yes. I was just thinking all the things you've learned through your circus play. Charging people, right? Imagination to create
Yep.
shows, running
Yep.
them on time so the audience are, there to watch. So you better entertain them. A lot of
It's
aspects.
true. It's true.
Creativity. Wow. Wow. That's cool. So you're going to homeschool your kids, you said. Is that something you decided because of COVID, or was it something that you've always been because you had the experience, right?
I actually waffled back and forth just because I have some small businesses that I've been working on starting, and I was like, I'm always going to homeschool. And then I waffle a little bit. I thought I'm going to put my son in private school. And then I waffle a little bit more. And then definitely with COVID, I'm like, no, I'm not
Mm.
going to deal with it. I don't want my child to have to wear a mask. I don't want them to be segregated when they eat
Like,
lunch. I don't want my son or my daughter to go through that experience. So I'm like, homeschooling's where it's at.
and the play looks different, right? When they're playing, and the playgrounds are going to look a little
Yeah,
different.
and I don't want them to grow up with that, perception or even that view of the world. I've even been careful as to how much I expose them to, going out. I try to make my husband do most of the shopping right now. And,
Put them out.
we do things more out in nature and, stuff like that because they're supposed to be carefree as kids. And I don't want to bog them down. They know that there are sick people and they pray for sick people. My son's prayer the other night was, Lord Jesus, please heal the sick people so we can go wherever we want. So, they do know what's going on, but I'm just still careful because they're kids. I have small kids. So
And you've been talking to them if he's praying, like you've been
yes.
explaining. So that's
Yeah.
something
Well,
else parents have to do,
I
right?
think it empowers them. It empowers them to know that they don't need to be afraid of it, but we can pray for people, and it gives them a little bit of power so they don't feel afraid or powerless.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been really careful to instill during this time is I don't want them to be afraid and I don't want them to feel powerless.
Yeah.
So
And also start not only fearing going outside, but fearing other people, right? Because
yeah.
then they'll start thinking that everybody has the disease or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's simple. Small kids put their own perception on stuff, right?
And that's lasting. I mean, I'm sure you had, but I know that I had perceptions from when I was a kid that I had to kind of overcome as an adult. You realize, oh, that's why I thought that way. And yeah, that's not right. And
Yes.
I want to give my kids the best start. I don't want them to have some sort of a fear-based or warped kind of sense of what's going on that will
Mhm.
affect them later on in life.
Yeah.
I want them to go take life, by the horns and wrestle it down and conquer the world and be, who they were created to be,
Yeah.
fearless and, conquering.
Perfect. Well said. So you're on the social media and stuff, because you have a work that allows you to do that. We'll come back to that a little bit later on, what your mission is. But you saw a lot of people, and you heard from a lot of people during COVID that, about their expectations and about their kids' abilities, and you saw something very that didn't fit with how you believe stuff, right? So
Yeah.
can you explain that? What did you notice?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of parents were actually really concerned because they had their kids in like daycare or preschool, and they do a lot of worksheets and they do a lot of writing and things. A lot of parents were saying, "My child can't write. My child's 2 years old, or my child's 3 years old. They can't write their name," and they were really concerned. And what I knew about, just because of play and talk, and because I'm very researched in this stuff, is that children at the age of 2 years old, the only thing that they're developmentally supposed to be able to do is to write a line like this.
Mhm.
That's developmentally. So it's not even
Of
an
course.
issue with their ability, but it's cognitively. It's what they're ready to be able to do and how they see their world. And then by 2.5, they're only supposed to be able to write a line like this. By
Mhm.
3, they're supposed to be able to write a circle.
Mhm.
By 3.5 to 4, it's a plus sign. By 4 years, it's a square. By
Mhm.
4.5, it's this
Diagonal.
diagonal, and then this diagonal, and then by almost 5, it's an X, and then 5 years 3 months is when they're supposed to be able to do a triangle.
Wow.
So it's like, there's parents have been trained because of the worksheets and things that they do in preschools, daycares, kindergartens, coloring pages, all that stuff, that their kids should be farther along, but really they're not. And
Mhm.
we don't want our kids to be able to have to work on these concrete things before they're ready, because out of imagination is where, inventions come out of. So
Yes.
why are we so rushed as a society to see our children perform something to a standard of what they think on a worksheet, whereas out of their imagination was where, Thomas Edison and his light bulb. We want them to create, we want them to imagine, we want them to play, because that's where, all the world's greatest inventions come from, is from the imagination. And if we rush them to concrete things too quickly, then they don't get to see mommy's high heel shoe as a princess thing, or, a little block as a toy airplane. And it's that
Mhm.
creativity, that imagination that I really feel is missing in a lot of areas. And I think we need to encourage our kids back into that.
Yes, yes, yes. And also, it's a pressure that we're putting on ourselves and onto
Yes,
the child without knowing it. And they're going to start resenting learning very
that's true.
quickly. And then the motivation just goes down. It's the cycle, right? So it's
Well,
very,
especially when they can't perform at that expectation because developmentally they weren't ready
not
to,
ready. Yes.
then they're already seeing themselves as a failure.
Mhm.
And we don't want that. We don't want our kids to feel like a failure. I mean, that's not
Especially at 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. They
I
don't
know.
do anything. They just need to play, learn
Yeah.
to play, right? Yes,
Yep.
yes. So, so important. But you're right. As a society, we have come to this worksheet, right? And you and me have a very strong opinion about worksheets. So, what is the controversy around worksheet-based learning?
Well, it's really interesting. I'm not an expert, let me just tell you,
Yes.
but I have read a lot. And there's one, and I can actually make it available to your viewers afterwards. It's an article, and it's by Sue Grossman, PhD. She's the
Mhm.
assistant professor of early childhood teacher education at Eastern Michigan University, and
Mhm.
she's written this amazing article. And she talks about how problem solving actually involves risk. And if we want our children to learn to solve problems, we must create a safe environment for them to feel confident in taking risks, making mistakes, and learning through them and trying to work through them again. And in play-based curriculum, you're able to help your children confidently take risks. But if you're doing worksheets, then they're already, like I said before, experiencing a bit of failure. They're
Mhm.
not doing worksheets are right or wrong.
Yes.
It's not like either or. It's not like, and here's the thing. I've told my son, something to do before, and I haven't given him instructions on how to do it, and he'll do it a completely different way than I ever imagined.
Yes.
Yet if I would have told him exactly what to do, if I would have said this is right and this is wrong, then that would have turned off his whole creativity in terms of problem solving, and it would have limited him to what the paper says is right or wrong. and it doesn't, it where, you know what I mean? It's just,
Yes.
we need to be able to allow our kids to experiment and to take risks and to grow as a person cognitively as they're meant to, and not feel like they have a right or a wrong. And I really feel that worksheets were just created because schools need to be able to show progress.
Yes.
And how can you show a child's progress in terms of learning if you're not doing worksheets?
There's no
It's
evidence.
kind of hard, right? Unless they're reciting something or memorizing something, but it's hard to really truly measure what they're learning. So they do worksheets. It's the easiest. I'll send worksheets so all the parents can see, oh, my child did XYZ. Oh, wonderful, great. But really, it's not good for them. And it's interesting. Let me read you a little portion of this article.
Mm.
She said, there are two fundamental problems with worksheets. First, young children do not learn from them what teachers and parents believe they do. And
Mm.
that's actually from a research paper written in 1993. Second, children's time should be spent in more beneficial endeavors. The use of abstract numerals and letters rather than concrete materials puts too many young children at risk of school failure. This has implications for years to come. Worksheets and workbooks should be used in schools only when children are older.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all based on cognitive development. So
Mm-hmm.
people much smarter than myself have done the research and figured this out. And so that's why I'm doing play-based curriculum with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm encouraging that. And it's kind of, the play-based curriculum is kind of Montessori-esque. And it's just, they learn by doing. And I want them to be creative. And that's that, because there's plenty of time for, I have my master's, I have my bachelor's, there's plenty of time for that. But what they're going to remember eventually someday is not all of the facts and figures that we teach them now. They're going to remember the experiences. They're going to remember that, you know what, I tried hard and I didn't do it the first time, I didn't do it the second time, but I made it the third time. I can do this. I
Yes.
can do anything. They're going to remember those things more than anything else.
Absolutely. And, that's one of the things I notice when I work with students who come for math help, right? It's exactly the same thing happens because they're driven by those worksheets, right? So they failed so many times with those worksheets. They're not motivated to do more worksheets because what's the point? I'm going to get it wrong anyway, right? Kind of mentality that seep into them. So it's really important to start early, like you say, and build that mindset into this child that I can do it. I just try, right? Just try, right? And that can be done in many forms. In the kitchen, we can teach our kids so many things, right? So that's why I'm coming up with a program called skip the worksheets, math worksheets.
Wonderful.
Skip it. Like it's like skip the dishes, it's skip the math worksheet, because you can actually teach math or anything on the go. It's everywhere, right? Like you can touch, for even reading, right? What you do, you can read anything, anywhere. I mean, signs, my parents used to tell me to read all the signs, sound out the signs when we're driving by or something, right? It just becomes fun. What's that letter? Find me R or S or something, right? That's more beneficial than sitting and saying, let's learn R and S on this worksheet.
Agreed.
In this room, on this table.
Agreed. It's funny you say that because I remember the first time I learned how to spell Mississippi was when we were on a road trip to Mississippi.
Yes. I've learned so many city names by just reading the road signs and spelling them like that. And I knew the end of it, right? But that's
so
because
true.
they showed me to figure out how long it's going to take us. And then comes the math, right? There's kilometers. You can ask, okay, now let's have a conversation about kilometers. How long? Because when they ask you, how long is it to get there? You can say, let's figure it out. Right?
Don't ask me kilometers because I'm in the US and we don't use kilometers.
Miles. Yeah, I won't ask you to convert.
You'll lose me there.
We won't convert. But that's it, right? It's just on the go. You don't need a worksheet. Skip the worksheet.
True.
Kids will love it. They'll have so much fun. You'll have so much fun.
Yeah.
And then those skills will transfer onto a worksheet, like you said, later in the grades.
Yes.
If they had fun with the idea of learning, now they can learn, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's wrong with recreating school at home?
Oh, that's a loaded question. During COVID, that question has taken on a new meaning. I have a friend who her school sent home, her schedule for her and her kids that she was supposed to teach her kids. And literally they had a schedule from 8 a.m. till 2 p.m. It's like, that's not homeschooling. That's not learning at home. That is what they do at school to keep them busy all day before their parents come and pick them up and they take them away.
Yes.
It's not, homeschooling can literally be done, especially if you're talking the younger grades, in less than 2 hours.
Yes.
Easy. And it's actually been proven. I follow the Charlotte Mason method, which is shorter lessons, more manipulative based, play-based learning. And it's interesting because, for like say phonics, my son does two 10-minute lessons per day. And he's learning how to read at 2 10-minute lessons per day. I have had stories of 4 and 5-year-olds that have done phonics, and within a year, they've been reading at a 5th grade level through the program that we've used. And that was at 2 10-minute lessons per day.
Wow.
So I think that too many times we think, oh my gosh, you should do math for 45 minutes. So you should do this but it's the short lessons. So it's under 2 hours. It's quick. It's easy. If your child becomes frustrated and that's when you end it. You go, you do a recess, you do a reset, you do a play-based learning activity, you do something fun and something that they can do with their hand. I keep using my hands because it's something they can do with their hands.
Yes, that's what they're for.
Something they can get their hands into, whether it's the connect sand or just something fun to just cancel out the frustration and start again. Because once they get to that frustrated part, you can't push through that. They're not old enough. Yes, as an adult, I can push through my frustration and keep going, but they can't do that as, young children.
No. I don't know if you know it or not, but what is the actual difference between Montessori and the Charlotte Mason programs like?
I'm not sure I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I know that Charlotte Mason's a little bit more freeform, I think, than Montessori. Montessori is a little bit more structured. I take the best of Montessori and what I'm taking and what I'm teaching my son and my daughter this next year. And we align ourselves more with Charlotte Mason for sure.
So that one is what is that?
It's short lessons.
Sure.
So it's about doing 15-minute, maybe 20-minute lessons, and it's about incorporating things like through story. So it's always involving an element of story. So even math is done through weaving stories into it, which I know that's a lot of what your method is too, because you talked about if a boy loves trains, working out a lot of the mathematical concepts with trains. So it's about, teaching and I mean, really, we all learn best through stories.
Yes.
So stories and parables, that's how we've always for eons and generations learned the best. So it's just more of that concept, and it's through play. It's through experiencing things out in nature and in everyday life. So
yeah. Awesome. So I wanted to ask you about your going back a little bit when you were young. You had rough start when it comes to learning to read.
Yes.
What's your story?
Well, when I was 5, I was diagnosed with dyslexia and a slight auditory processing disorder where I had processed things a little bit slower than other kids. So that meant that I was never the kid that had the quick, fast comebacks. My friends would have witty comebacks and I'd say, you're stupid. And that's all I could think of on the spot, right? But I was told essentially through those diagnoses that I would never read past the 6th grade level. Ever, and that I would struggle to read. And my mom was like, no, that is not going to be my child. My child is brilliant. She is going to do great things in this life, and I'm not taking that. So she did all her research. She researched and found this amazing phonics program. We bought it. She actually had to do it, I think, on payment plans because my parents were pastors and they were on a limited budget back then. And so she got her payment plan, she got the program, and I started it. And amazingly, by the time I was in 6th grade, I was reading at a college level, thanks to this program.
Wow.
So we went through it quite a few times. It was occasionally like pulling teeth, so we'd take a step back and we'd start over at a later date. But I mean, literally from start to finish, this program, it is the reason why I've been successful today. I mean, I have, like I said before, I have my bachelor's, I have my master's. I could have never done that if I didn't learn how to read. And I went from not knowing how to read and being frustrated with reading to loving to read. In 6th grade, I was reading these little like mystery kind of Nancy Drew novels, and my mom would literally have to kick me outside to go play. She's like, get out, go play, get outside, you're done reading for the day. So I went
Yes.
from struggling to loving to read, and it's
Uh-huh.
really created a lifetime of learning for me,
Wow.
which has made, I mean, I did well in corporate world. I made over 6 figures when I was full-time in corporate world, and I'm starting, my own businesses, and it's all because of
Yes.
my ability to read.
Yes.
All because my mom found a great program, and she said, no, my child is not going to be labeled with dyslexia and not learning how to read.
Mm.
My child is going to overcome all these things, and taking me through it. And she taught me, she's the first person that taught me, that I could do anything I put my mind to, I can do. It may take me a little bit more time to do. It may take a little bit more study for me, but I can do anything. And I think that that's honestly why I've been so successful
Yep.
in life, period, because I have that I can do it
Yes.
attitude.
Yes. Well, you never told us the name of the program. You have to share it.
Play and
Your
talk.
play
Play
and
and talk
talk.
phonics.
Play and talk. I love the name. Play. First is
It,
play, not talk and play. Play and talk. Right?
yeah,
It's
it
perfect.
says everything, right?
Yes, it says everything. So, what is driving you now? Like, what are you on?
Well, what's driving me now is I see that what it's done for me, the ability to read and everything. Like I can see looking back in life, all the train of things that have happened, and it's all because I can read. And if you look at the stats, especially in the US, I'm going to read a couple to you right now. This is what's driving me. Currently, 45 million Americans are functionally illiterate and cannot read above a fifth grade level.
Mm-hmm.
45 million.
Wow.
50% of adults cannot read a book written at an eighth grade level.
Wow.
57% of students failed the California Standards Test in English.
Mm-hmm.
1/3 of fourth graders, they reach the proficient reading level. 1/3.
Wow.
Proficient. That's not an excellence. That's not even,
Just
that's the proficient,
bare,
the
bare minimum.
baseline, bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
1/3 of them reach proficient reading level.
Mm-hmm.
So that means 2/3 of kids are below even reading where they're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then 25% of students in California school systems are able to perform basic reading skills. 25%.
Wow.
So what's driving me is just illiteracy in period. I want kids, because books open up a whole world to them. They can pretend to be knights and kings and all the different, for me, like mystery, a super sleuth, super sleuth and solving mysteries. It just opens up a whole world and sets up a lifetime of learning and excellence in their lives. And if they can't read, then none of that is open up to them. And especially on my heart is those with learning disabilities.
Yes. Yes.
Because so many, unfortunately, there are a lot of programs out there, but they don't do things the way this program does. And so the kids with learning disabilities are kind of left behind.
Yeah.
They're not able to read at the level that they should and could be able to read. And it's so funny because I had a mom on our Learning to Read group. We've got a Facebook group for Learning to Read the other day, and she was on there, and I'm literally, if I want to cry just telling you, but her son has been diagnosed with dyslexia and all the very similar things, but he's very severe. And she was on the group crying because she was doing the program and her son was actually beginning to read.
Wow.
For the first time at 9 years old.
Nice.
And she'd been through everything. She's been through speech therapists. She's been through everything that money can buy. And this one program has been making the difference in her son's life too. And just to see a mom crying because her son's actually achieving what she dreamed of him, that's what drives me.
Yes.
Like the success of kids and being able to see what they were created to do in life because they're able to read, that's that. Like I'm getting all teary-eyed. That's what drives me.
Yeah,
it's very near and dear to my heart.
It's beautiful. I'm glad to hear that. And do you think would this work for, sometimes we have the speech therapy and things for nonverbal autistic kids, right? Would this also work for them as well, or do they have to have some speech?
Well, I don't know about the nonverbal, but I mean, I would try it. But I do know that for some that have been verbal, we have success stories of autistic kids that have, deficiencies in that area. And especially kids too with speech impediments, because our program, the teacher is on the audio. So you have the teacher speaking it on the audio and you have kids repeating it on the audio. So they'll say k at cat, b at bat. And it's amazing because I have testimony after testimony of parents with kids with speech impediments too, where their speech is improved because they're listening to it and they're repeating it and they're also reading it at the same time. So you're using multiple senses at once. And the nice thing is too, it also takes the burden off the parents because the parent's not meant to be the phonics expert. The teacher's on the recordings. So you sit your child down and you let them go through the lessons, and then you're just there to help support and reinforce, which for me too, it takes a big burden off me because I don't want to be the phonics teacher. I want to help educate, but I'm not the expert in all these areas. So it's nice for me to have a program to sit my child in front of and not feel like I have to be the expert in that area.
Yeah, and also you don't have to sit with them. Like
True. You don't have to. No.
You can
Yeah.
supervise them, but you don't really have to sit with them. I like that.
Well, we have too many parents that have older siblings, and what they'll do is they'll say, you're going to teach your little sister how to read, and they'll have them do it. Meanwhile, they're getting the benefit of it too. So it's, especially if you have an older one that maybe is not up to par with reading, it's a great way. You can do it multiple ways.
The best way to teach kids to learn more of what they learned is to ask them to teach it to someone else. Younger or older even, like, ask them, I don't really understand, how does it work, right? And then they're in the power position and they love explaining. Like, I love using that trick in my coaching all the time. It's perfect. So what's the history of how you launched this program during COVID?
I had been working actually on, so I obviously didn't create Play and Talk. Play and Talk was created by an amazing lady, Dr. Marie Ledoux, and it was created 59 years ago.
Wow.
She actually took it from a very prestigious Beverly Hills school called the Isabel Buckley School. They had taken this phonics method from all the different methods that were available worldwide and implemented it into their school. Well, she had her kids in this school, and her son that was like 8 years old picked up the Wall Street Journal one day and was reading it. And she was like, what? How are you able to do this? And so she went and she spoke with the school, and she worked with the school, and she actually developed Play and Talk based on their method. And she worked on it for over 10 years, but it's been around for 59 years. The owner has, since she passed back in early 2000s, and that her son kept the business running for a while, but her son is a CEO of a multinational vitamin manufacturing company. So he had a whole nother business that he had to run. So they eventually they did close it down just because they didn't have anyone to run it. And for me, that made me sad. I knew what it had done for me, and I didn't want to see another generation of kids left behind. And so I really had the heart. About a year ago, I started working with them on acquiring the rights to launch the business. And it wasn't quite finished. And then COVID hit, and I said, we have to finish this now because I want free resources. We've been giving free resources to parents during COVID. I want this in the hands of parents because they're all having a homeschool. Everyone's having a homeschool now. Everyone's a homeschooler. Congratulations. You are a homeschooler. You are a homeschooler. Oprah style, right? Nice. So I worked with them. We finished up the contracts, and like March 23rd, I launched my free group, started, letting parents know about it. And we have a whole lot of it's really neat, homeschoolers that learn to read with Play and Talk, that are in the free group, that are now teaching their kids how to read with Play and Talk. Wow. So we have second generation users going on, and it's so neat to see in the community that we've developed. The ones with second generation are helping the ones that are just starting, and it's just pretty neat to see.
So interesting, Aimee, that you just brought back something that would have been just left in the dust and brought it back because it was so powerful for you, and you know that it needs to be out.
Yeah.
You brought it back in a perfect time when parents were with kids all the time, right? Yeah. So tell me, how does it actually work? Like, what is the special, like the secret behind it?
Well, there's 4 areas that make Play and Talk special. One is the fact that we don't do what most programs do, which is that a lot of them actually teach all the rules and the exceptions up front in the very beginning of the program. And the problem is that when you're first starting your kids out, especially if they're 3, 4, 5 years old, they're not ready to learn those. So what Play and Talk does is they follow the spiral method. Mm-hmm. So they will teach the different sounds and the different rules and the different exceptions as they are ready developmentally, and also as they're ready to receive it because of what they've learned.
Yes.
So it's much different than, or it's let me just say, most programs don't do that. Most will teach it all and they'll rely on memorization. They
Yes.
must memorize all these things. The other thing that sets Play and Talk apart is we do a lot of the rules and the exceptions to music. So
Mm.
they're learning rhymes and they're learning songs, and they were all actually developed by musical and movement experts.
Wow.
So the music is very calm. It's not something that would, it's actually meant to developmentally help them to memorize.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had experts with regards to learning disabilities as well. So as music, movement, and learning disability experts all helped to formulate the music that's in the program.
Wow. Perfect.
So it's been tested. Well, I mean, there's 59 years of success behind it.
That's
So
yes.
you can't. The other thing that makes it different is it's only 2 10-minute lessons per day. That's it.
Perfect. Perfect.
So
Short and sweet.
short and sweet. And we tell the parents, if your child starts to get frustrated, can it for that day and start the next day,
Yeah.
because it's very important that learning is fun.
Okay.
And the way that Play and Talk is actually developed is so that it builds your child's confidence,
Yes.
because as their confidence in learning to read increases, their ability increases, and it becomes more fun for them. And that's the biggest thing, is because when it's not fun, that's when they stop learning.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
So, and then also we don't do workbook. So our program is completely non-consumable, meaning that parents can teach it with one child or 100 children. There are no worksheets, there are no workbooks that you have to buy more of. And most programs have like here's, session 1 and here's all the workbooks with it. Here's session 2. We don't do that. And so it's actually cost effective for parents because they pay once and they can use it with all of their kids.
It's perfect. And while I was listening to you, I think the biggest thing is there's no overwhelm, even with the way it's built. You're giving like you're chunking bite size for the kids. You're not overwhelming them with all these rules. And then
Yeah.
I'm already given up in the beginning, right? As a learner, I'm like, okay, it's too much, right? And the parents too, right? Same for parents. They're like, okay, now I have to do all this. It makes a big difference when that overwhelm is out of the equation.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
because they don't have to do any lesson preps. They don't have to, there's nothing to prep. They literally open the instructor's manual. Okay, here's what I'm doing for day 1. And they do it. They set them in front of the audio in the book and they do their thing. And then later on, they do their reinforcement activity or game. So it's very simple, very easy. It's the way learning should be.
yes, yes. And for you now, with your kids, you're obviously using it, right? Like,
Yes,
is
I
there
am.
age, like, is it age appropriate or does it matter? Let's say I have a child, let's say I am, they're older now and they're still not reading. Can I give them? Is it the stories and the thing going to be age
Yes.
appropriate? Yeah.
So if you have an older child and you're using it for remedial work, we say start from the beginning. Go
Okay.
beginning to end, no matter where. You'll go faster for a child that's doing it for remedial work. So you may finish the program in 6 months, but with kids that are 3, 4, 5, it'll be anywhere from 2 to 3 years. So it just depends on where your child is at. And like I said earlier, we have a lot of parents will use the trick of, I have an older student, but I'm also wanting to teach my 3-year-old too. So you have the 7-year-old teach the
Yes.
3-year-old how to read. And then they're both getting the benefit of it. And the beautiful thing is you can teach them at the same time. You will have to separate off as soon as you hit the point where your child has it's not remedial anymore and it's learning fresh. Then you'll have to separate off, and because the 3-year-old won't be at that point yet. But it's very easy to do, and it's I've heard stories. It's been amazing. Like I didn't start my son. He started this year when he's almost 5, just because I wanted him to play in the dirt more. I knew he wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
But I have had parents that have started their kids at 3 years old, and then by 4 years old, they're reading at literally a 5th grade level. Like crazy, amazing stories like that. So
Thank
it
you
just
for
depends on your
sharing.
kid.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that stats you earlier shared, because that makes it so powerful. Because if you think about it, if you leave it like this, there's a problem, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many things reading brings, right? Imagination too, right? So, Aimee, would you say you're on a mission now?
Yes, yes, I am. Based on what I mentioned earlier about all the stats, and I want to see kids be successful. So every testimonial that I receive, every video that I receive, it spurns me on to continue to get this out there to parents. And I'm not a big company. I started this, like I said, during COVID. It's just my husband and I. We're not, wealthy people. I am doing this. I'm putting together play and talks in my living room and shipping them out myself. This is right now a one family show, but it is so important to us because I want to see this more success stories. I want to see more kids helped, and I want to see more kids launched into what they were designed to do in life. And when in those wee hours of the night, when I'm tired because I've been with my kids all day long and I'm trying to do play and talk at night and, manage everything that's on my plate, I sometimes go back and I look through the owner's, she saved all the testimonies from the last 59 years.
Wow.
And I'll go through and I have testimonies from school districts. I have testimonies from parents. I have testimonies from like all different walks of life. And then even just in the group, I get chills just like with the parents that are now, they learned with Play and Talk, they're now using it with their kids. And it's just, that's what drives me. It's amazing to see that legacy. And I just want to continue. I feel honored to be able to take on Dr. Marie Ledoux's legacy. I feel honored to be able, I never imagined that what taught me to learn how to read when I was 5, that I would actually take over and run that business someday.
Cool.
That was not part of my grand master plan, but I'm humbled and honored, and I love serving the parents and the kids. It's what drives me.
It works. You have to share it. Whatever works, right? It's a disservice if you don't share what works.
Exactly.
Right? Yes.
I agree.
And I wanted to ask you one more is this could be very cool for kids learning second language as well.
Yes.
They struggle too, right? Yeah, we missed that. Yeah.
Yep. I don't have any testimonies right this second, but I actually have all the old testimonies. There were actually full-on schools in New York that were ESL schools that were teaching, kids from different nationalities how to read and speak English through Play and Talk.
Yes.
I have lots of historical. I have so many testimonies. I could post them. I could be scanning them for days. But
do the paper look old? Like the
yes, they
color?
do. I should actually post some pictures of some of them in the group.
I like those kind of look. That's
I should post some pictures.
Yes, please do.
I'm a busy mom. I don't have time to type all that up.
No. That's the best part. Is it's discolored. That's what's cool about.
Good point.
Right? We want to see that. That's beautiful.
I'll post them.
Please. And also, I was going to say that the best part of your program is that you don't need to do any professional testing per se, or give them a worksheet to tell you. They will be reading one day the Wall Street Journal in front of you. You're like, what is going on? Right? They will show it to you. You will just see it. That's the cool part. You don't need any other evidence.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah, so it's very, very empowering. I think you've given a lot of parents, that's one of the things parents always worry about, right?
Yeah.
Reading, and then writing, and then math.
Yes, that's the other one. That's the other biggie.
You are solving a big part of parents' worry. So thank you so much. It's amazing. And thank you for sharing your personal story. It's, very, how you started. It just makes beautiful story. Like how you learned, now you're taking this and giving to a lot more people. And, if she was here, the owner of that program, she could see how massive results you're going to be making.
Yeah. Oh, I'd like to think that. Yeah, it's just beautiful.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.